Chapter 15. A couple hours after Vanessa left, Mike stood in his kitchen and watched the sky outside his window turn orange. For the 5th time, he redialed Max's number. When he put the phone to his ear, he heard the same thing he'd already heard 4 times.
"Hey, it's Maxine,"
Max's voice said.
"Leave a message. Or don't."
Mike sighed and dropped his phone. He glanced over at Abby, already in her flannel PJs, pink with bright red stars all over. Abby was sitting on the sofa. She had Dolph tucked under one arm, and her drawing pad was on her lap. Of course she was drawing. The TV was on in the background, and of course she didn't seem to be paying any attention to it. Mike looked back outside again. The sky was still orange, and the orange color was getting deeper. He looked at his watch. He was running out of time. "Where are you?" Mike asked out loud as he dialed Max's number for the 6th time. Mike listened to Max's message once again. He heaved another, louder sigh. He looked over at Abby. She lifted her head and met his gaze. Rubber crunching over loose rocks and broken gravel, engine lugging, Mike's old car coughed to a stop against the curb in front of Freddy's. Mike looked through his windshield at the old building. "This is a very bad idea," he thought. When the sun had gone down, a thin fog had rolled down out of the hills at the edge of town. The moon, slightly larger tonight than the night before, still managed to deliver its shine, but that shine was smeared by the dense, moist air. The hazy moonlight on the pizzeria made the building look otherworldly. Mike's imagination turned the building into a big hand, just wanting to reach out and grab the car. Mike turned and looked at his sister, who sat primly upright in the back seat. Still in her PJs and still clutching Dolph, Abby was ensconced next to a large backpack which Mike had stuffed with blankets for a hidey tent and a sleeping bag. Abby was looking eagerly at Freddy's. You would have thought they were outside an amusement park. "This isn't a vacation, Abs," Mike said. "You're not here to have fun." Abby kept her gaze on the pizzeria.
"Okay,"
she said. Mike deepened his voice, attempting to sound stern. "I will work," he said. "You will sleep. And under no circumstances are you to leave my office." Abby kept staring at Freddy's. Mike leaned over the seat and waved a hand in front of his sister's face. "I need you to look at me and tell me you understand." Abby didn't shift her gaze.
"I understand,"
she said. Mike raised his voice. "Abby?" Finally, Abby looked at him.
"I understand."
She managed to burden the word with tons of attitude. The heavy metal door clanged shut, as usual, after Mike ushered his sister inside the restaurant. As the bone-rattling clank stopped reverberating, Mike stared at the lobby in dismay.
"What happened?"
Abby asked. Mike's gaze hopped from the broken glass to the ragged holes in the drywall. He took in the bench's torn vinyl. He frowned at a stream of quarters that seemed to lead down the hallway. Mike adjusted the strap of the large backpack he had slung over his left shoulder. He looked down at his sister. "Give me your hand." Surprisingly, she did so without hesitation. Mike began guiding her forward. He did his best to wave around the worst of the glass shards, but navigating Abby through the destruction was unnerving. He felt like he was leading his sister to her execution.
"It smells funny in here,"
Abby said as Mike deliberately put his body between hers and the archway to the dining room. One glance through the arch told Mike that the damage in that room was even worse than what he was seeing in the lobby. Not that the hallway was much better. Like the lobby, the hallway floor was carpeted in glass, and the trail of coins continued. Abby was right about the smell. Freddy's had never smelled great, but now its odors were even worse. The smell was pungent and made Mike's nostrils burn. Continuing to step carefully, Mike got Abby down the length of the hall. He ushered her into the office. Once there, he let go of Abby's hand and shut the door. Abby stepped forward and looked around, her eyes bright and curious. The office, strangely, appeared to be untouched by the vandals. All the electric equipment was as it should be. Huh, Mike thought. Dismissing the mystery of why vandals hadn't destroyed the CCTV monitors, Mike turned his attention to getting Abby settled. He slipped the backpack off his shoulder. "Help me make your hidey tent," Mike said to Abby. Abby, who had been inching toward the desk and the monitors, turned back toward Mike. For the next few minutes, Mike and Abby worked together to form a hidey tent for the blankets, using the filing cabinets as tent posts. They unrolled her sleeping bag, and Abby crawled inside of it. Once there, she snuggled into a ball on her side. Doll firmly pressed against her chest. Mike, crouching on his heels in front of the makeshift tent flaps, was happy to see that Abby's lids were drooping. "Do you want me to turn off the lights?" he asked. Abby shook her head. Her lids fluttered even lower. "Good night," Mike said. Abby didn't respond. Her eyes had closed. Mike backed through the overlapping blankets. He started to let them fall together, but he paused when Abby spoke. Her voice was nearly whisper-soft, groggy. Mike opened his mouth to respond, but he saw his sister's mouth drop open slightly. Her breathing slowed. Mike smiled and closed up the hidey tent. He exhaled softly, the concern that he was making a mistake bringing Abby to Freddy's, abating now that she was tucked in. "It's going to be okay," he thought. Mike straightened and crossed over to the desk. He checked the CCTV monitors, scanning all the interior feeds. "Wow," he thought. "Someone really did do a number on the place." Mike frowned. He was sure he'd locked up the night of the storm, but he still felt guilty about what had happened. He glanced at the hidey tent. Pee-wee, children's snoring sounds were coming from within the overlapped blankets. Mike looked back at the monitors. He sighed. Vandalism cleanup wasn't in his job description, but he couldn't leave the place this way. He listened to Abby snoring for a few more seconds. Then he left the office, closing the door behind him. Looking at the closed door for a moment, Mike hesitated. She was safe in there, wasn't she? He shook off his willies. Sure she was. Mike took a step forward and cringed at the crunching glass beneath his feet. Step one, he decided, had to be sweeping up all the glass. Resolved, Mike strode down the hall. He ignored the crackling and tinkling sounds that his feet made as they shattered more glass, and kicked errant quarters. Halfway down the hall, Mike stopped in front of the frosted glass-fronted door of the supply closet. Opening the door, he reached in and up. He put his hand on the pull string that hung from the closet's single bulb. Then he hesitated. The closet wasn't covered by CCTV, and given the chaotic shambles in the rest of the pizzeria, he wasn't sure what he was going to find in here. Mike yanked on the pull string. The bulb came on, and Mike gazed at it. A perfectly ordinary collection of janitorial equipment. Maybe it was a little jostled, but otherwise, all seemed to be... Wait, what was that? Glancing at the open door, Mike noticed a few drops of red on the frosted glass, and a faint smear. Was that blood? Mike shrugged. Maybe one of the vandals cut themselves. Mike stepped forward and turned to his left. Instantly, he jumped back. "Oh, good grief," he said. What had startled him was a stupid balloon boy. Mike made a face at the grinning little bug-eyed doll. "How'd you get in here?" Mike asked the doll. Vandals with a sense of humor, he thought. Mike turned the boy's face toward the wall, ignoring little pit-a-pat of his nerve endings. Why did the stupid doll get to him? Mike grabbed a push broom. He quickly turned around, tugged on the light cord, and left the supply closet. He shut the door firmly behind him. For the next couple hours, Mike put his nose to the grindstone. Having been a janitor several times, Mike could handle a push broom like a pro. So, the work, though not the most fun in the world, wasn't difficult. Starting in the hallway, Mike swept everything that littered the floor into a pile that he pushed against one side of the dining room. The pile included all the glass from the hall and the lobby and all the coins that were strewn around. He was tempted to go through the pile and pull out the coins. It would be kind of like panning for gold, but he decided to deal with that later. Mike consolidated all the dining room furniture, making another pile of broken chairs and tables. In the arcade area, he couldn't really do much with the destroyed game cabinets. All he could really do was more sweeping. The glass that littered the floor there joined the other glass in the dining room pile. When he was sweeping in front of the stage, Mike encountered a yellow puddle and a strong ammonia odor. "Gross," Mike said. Pushing his broom ahead of him, Mike headed to the kitchen. When he passed through the service doors into the vast stainless steel domain, he sighed. This was going to be another big job. But Mike tackled it. Riding shelving units, returning pots and pans, dented but still usable, to their places, and sweeping up more broken shards. These were thicker pieces of dinnerware. Mike got the kitchen back in semi-order. Then he returned to the task that had originally brought him in here. He filled a couple buckets with warm, soapy water. Mike took the buckets to the stage, returned to the supply closet to get a mop, and then headed back to the stage again. He spent the next several minutes thoroughly cleaning the area at the base of center stage. He even cleaned past that area, wanting to be sure he didn't miss a single speck of what one vandal had left behind. Once Mike was done with that cleanup, he left the buckets where they were. He'd take care of them later. He was running out of steam, and he still had a lot to do. Returning to the supply closet, Mike found a dustpan and a box of heavy-duty garbage bags. He then tackled the task of turning his pile of glass and debris into 4 tidy bags of vandal detritus, and he filtered out the coins. Not sure what to do with the pile of quarters, Mike put them in another bag. He took the overstuffed bags back to the loading dock, where he discovered how the vandals had gotten in. He found a broken padlock lying on the floor. A new one had already been installed on the outer door, and he saw that the back door to the kitchen was broken down. The break-in hadn't been Mike's fault at all. Finally, Mike retreated to the archway with the bag of coins and his mop and broom. He stopped there to survey his handiwork, and he wasn't fully unsatisfied with it. The room looked better than it had, and it was the best he could do at the moment. Mike took the mop and broom back to the supply closet. He stowed the bag of coins there too. Then he shoulders and back yelling at him for all the physical labor he'd put them through. Mike returned to the office. Mike opened the office door slowly, and he stepped softly as he entered. He looked toward the hiding tent, and he was happy to hear Abby still quietly snoring away. He glanced up at the clock above the tent. It was almost 4 a.m. Mike looked at the desk chair. Briefly, he thought about the promise he'd made to Vanessa, but the chair beckoned, and he was wiped out. Mike gave in to his need for rest and the compulsion of his routine. He set up his cassette player, rested his gaze on his taped-together poster, and in seconds, his eyes were closing and the pine trees were swaying in his mind. No pills needed.